I'm about to interview Rolly Crump. Hey everyone, and welcome to That Disney Girl, and this week is a special week because we are going to be beginning the How to Become an Imagineer series. In this series, I am going to be talking to various Imagineers that have worked for the Walt Disney World Company, and I am very excited to kick it off with Disney legend Imagineer extraordinaire Rolly Crump. You probably already know this, but Rolly has had his hand in everything from animation to park design. He designed parts of the Tiki Room, It's a Small World, went to the World Fair, the Haunted Mansion. He has done so much for the Walt Disney World Company. He has so many fun stories to tell about himself and Walt, but there's no point in me harping on about him because I think he can do that for himself pretty well. So let's welcome Rolly Crump to That Disney Girl. Here goes nothing. Okay.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Oh my god, this is like a dream for me right now. Oh, thank you both of you so much for agreeing to chat with me for a little bit. I'm really excited to just to get the opportunity to.
Okay, I'll tell him what you said.
Okay.
Yeah, tell me what she said.
Yeah, she's really excited. This is like a dream come true.
Oh my God.
Anyway, she appreciates that you want to talk to her.
Sure, no problem. I can talk to you, but I can't hear anything. We'll work it out. We do this all the time, so it'll work.
Okay, well, no problem with me. So I have a few questions that I wanted to ask you about today. If there's anything else you wanted to mention, go for it. But basically, my first question, I kind of just wanted to get into your name, just your name being Rolly. If what I've heard is correct, that is that was a nickname given to you. So I just kind of wanted to hear the little story behind that one, if you were able to tell it.
Okay, you ready for this?
Oh, I am.
When I first met Walt, I shook his hand and I said, "Mr. Disney," I said, "it's a pleasure to work for you." And he said, "Roland," at that time I was Roland. And he says, "Roland, it's Walt, and don't you forget it." He didn't want to be called Mr. Disney. Only everybody that worked with him talked to him on a first name basis. So that's what happened. Well, I had been with the company, I guess, working with him for maybe about a month or so, and then all of a sudden he started calling me Owen, not Roland, but Owen. And I thought, oh my God, what's this all about? So I answered to whatever he called me. I didn't care if he changed my name. And so finally, after a while, I found out that there was an Owen Crump that was a writer, and he had misinterpreted me with Owen Crump. So I was Owen for a while, and that was fine. I didn't bother me. And then one day I became Orland, and I don't know where Orland came from, but I used to as Orland for quite some time. And but I just went by whatever he wanted to call me. And then one day we were at a meeting with Yale Gracie, and Walt turned to Yale and said, "Yale," and then he turned to me and what's his name? He couldn't remember my name, and I didn't say anything about it. I thought, I'll just let it go. Well, then eventually he started calling me Rolly, so I got the nickname Rolly from Walt, and it stayed with me ever since. But it was kind of a fun time because I just thought, as long as I'm talking with him, I'm thrilled. I don't care what he calls me. So anyway, he was such a sweetheart.
Oh, it's a funny story just because it feels like your name went through so many different versions. But I guess the next thing I kind of want to jump to is just kind of following your career. Obviously, you were an animator. You went from an in-betweener to an assistant, and you worked on so many films like 101 Dalmatians, Peter Pan, the list goes on and on. But something that I liked reading and liked hearing you talk about is when you say that you had the worst portfolio in all of Disney when you were applying. And I was just kind of wondering, like, what was in that portfolio and why was it so bad and why do you think you got the job anyway?
But that was nothing more than what I did after work, when I was working for a pottery, and what I did on the weekends. It was my own personal work that I was just doing for fun.
In high school?
Mm-hmm.
In high school, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, the interesting thing about it was, some of the work was when I was in high school, and then some of it was work I did after I got out of high school. When I I just go home at night and draw, and I'd have all these funny little drawings, and I kept them for some stupid reason. Anyway, and I still have that book. It's my original book that I did, but they're very naive, but at the same time they were a lot of fun. So it got me started.
I've read that people often need to do they had to do like a pencil test and animate a certain character when they were applying to be to work in animation at Disney. Did you have to do that?
Yes, I did. After they said, okay, we'll hire you, which was a shock. And so I went into another little room, and that's when they showed me how to be an in-betweener. I didn't even know that I was applying for a job in animation. All I knew I was applying for a job to work for Disney. So anyway, I got in this little room, and then they'd show me how to do in-betweens. So I started practicing doing in-betweens, and probably within a week after my practicing, I was actually doing production drawings on Peter Pan as an in-betweener. So that was a pretty exciting damn time.
Sounds like it. So was the end goal to become an Imagineer, and why do you think you were? I know that Walt picked a lot of people from animation to come over and be Imagineers and work on Disneyland. Why do you think you were picked, or what did you create that makes you feel like you were chosen to kind of head on over and create things for the theme parks, and is this something that you wanted to do?
Oh yeah, now I know, because I want to get out of animation. No, I used to hang out in the model shop, and I was very much aware of all the different projects Walt was working with, and I was kind of basically realizing in animation I'd never go anywhere. I wasn't excited about wanting to be an animator, so I had no desire to stay in animation. So I wanted to get into design, and of course the best way to get into design is spend time in the model shop and see what Walt is having models built about. So that's basically what kicked me off. I crossed paths with Walt a few times, which was good. Okay, here we go. I was interested in working at WED, and I had talked to a lot of the animators, including Ward Kimball. And Ward loved my outside work and the crazy things that I did. And what happened was, he had a meeting with Walt, with some of the other guys, and Walt says, I'm looking for some new people to come to work at WED. And Ward says, well, Rolly Crump. And he says, Rolly Crump? He says, yeah. He says, but I checked on him. He said, I found out that he was too important. He was working for one of the 9 old men, which told him that I was way too important to be. Nobody wanted anybody to leave Disney animation and go to WED, because WED was called Cannibal Island. Because once you went to WED to work for a while, you never went back into animation. So therefore you disappeared on the planet. Anyway, Ward told him to take a look at, I was having an exhibit in the library at that particular time. So Ward told Walt, Roy's having a show, why don't you go look at his show? So Walt came to my show and fell in love with my propellers and everything that I did, and decided he wanted to hire me. So I got hired. And it was really great. That's when I said I went up and met with him. He shook my hand and said, my name is Walt, and don't you forget it.
Wow, okay, amazing. And speaking of propellers, of course I'd like to touch on the World's Fair and then the Tower of Four Winds. Before I ask you about the tower, I was just curious, were there any other projects at the World Fair that you had a hand in creating, or that you were associated with?
Yeah, well, I worked on different shows. Yeah, it was that, I was sprinkled in there and doing different things. And, the Ford Pavilion, which I did a little animated theater with the instruments that were made out of automobile parts, a little orchestra. And I did that, and that was kind of fun. I think that was pretty much it as far as the World's Fair goes.
Jumping back to the two main things you did focus on, Small World and the Tower. The Tower, it's such a creative and interesting design. What kind of prompted you to to do that and to make it look the way that it does look. And I know that is there a reason you didn't love it in the end? Because from what I've heard, it's once it came to fruition, you didn't mind not taking it back to Disneyland.
Well, what happened is it's kind of a true story. There was one animator that was kind of a clever little guy and did, everybody that was in animation did a lot of different things for themselves personally. And I know I did mobiles for myself personally. And this one animator did this little propeller that was on a push pin that was made out of a piece of a eraser holder for a pencil, the Blackwing pencil. And I used to use Blackwing, and so what this animator did was he took the clip that had the eraser in it out of the pencil, and there was this little clip, and he took the eraser part out of the clip, and then he put a dent in the little clip and put it on top of a little push pin at his desk. So at his desk he had a little lamp, and the push pin was on the lamp, and the heat from the lamp caused the propeller to turn. And I was excited about that, so I had to make one. And I worked on it for weeks, and I couldn't get it to work. And so I finally went to him and said, Jesus Christ, how do you do that? And he kept telling me, I can't tell you, it's a secret. I can't tell you, it's a secret. Well, maybe after about a month or so, and I kept asking him every damn day, he says, okay, he says, I couldn't get it, because I was pulling these little things out and making propellers, but they wouldn't turn. And it was a dent that I made in the little clip that wouldn't work, and I couldn't understand that. Well, he explained to me that I was using nails to make the little dent, and he said, no, you use a ballpoint pen, and when you do the ballpoint pen, they're little round dents that they make, so the actual propeller will fit on that. So I finally made one. And I was thrilled. I had it in my office, and then I started making a bunch of them, and the animator I worked with in my office started helping me make them. So we had a room filled with propellers. That was all based on this crazy one that we did to begin with the Blackwing pen. That little bend of the thing that held it. So that's how that got started. Well, Walt came to me at the World's Fair, and he says, Rolly, I want you to design a marquee for It's a Small World. And he says, I want you to do it with propellers. And I said, oh, okay, because now he was familiar with my propellers. So I went back to work, and I actually went over to Maple and worked in that department for a while because he had all kinds of machinery that I could use. And so I designed this Tower of the Four Winds, and I built a scale model. It was a half-inch scale model of the entire tower to show Walt, to show him what the marquee was going to look like. And he loved it. He says, well, let's build it. I said, okay. And away we went. And it was subcontract to a company outside outside of Disney that was going to build the tower. And what they did was they took my propeller model that I built, and which was a tower, and they copied it, and they blew it up to full time to 120 feet in the air. It was a big guy. So that's how that all came about.
In regards to the tower, is there a reason why you weren't as satisfied with it once it was full scale?
No, first of all, the engineers got a hold of it, and they made everything fat. In other words, something that was 6 inches in diameter became 16 inches in diameter, which meant that it got to be, as far as I was concerned, it wasn't delicate anymore. And so that was after it was built. And I had to take Walt down to see the original tower once it was built. And Walt said, well, Rolly, what are you thinking? And I said, I think it's a piece of crap. And he says, what? I said, I think he said, why do you think it's a piece of crap? I said, it's because it's fat and ugly. Lost the delicacy that I thought I had. And he said, yeah, but we're going to build it. And I said, okay, fine. And he says, it costs $400,000. And I said, okay, it's not a piece of crap. And so then they built it, and then I got used to it. I got used to my piece of crap. And now let me tell you why we didn't bring it back. I didn't want to bring it back because I wanted it redesign it, rebuild it, and make it a more delicate tower. And but that's what I wanted to do. But they said no. They brought all the vice presidents in. They said that Walt wants to bring it back to Disneyland, and I said, but I don't want to bring it back. And they said, we know that, but you tell Walt that you don't want to bring it back. And I said, okay, I will. So Walt came into the meeting, and we talked for a while and everything. And then finally the question came about Rolly doesn't want to bring the tower back. So he says, why don't you want to bring it back? Well, and I said, well, we can build another one and put it inside a building so it doesn't have to be so cumbersome looking. And Walt said, no, we're going to bring it back. And I said, no, I really don't want to bring it back. And the reason I don't want to bring it back was because during the year, while it was running at the World's Fair, one of the propellers came off in the middle of the season and went right through a wall. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to design anything that could break loose and hurt anyone. So I was concerned about it, the safety of the propeller, the people around it. So I told him that. I said, that's the reason. I said, I don't want anyone to be hurt because of something I designed.
That makes sense. And I guess kind of continuing on the Small World train, I know that, of course, you designed the facade of It's a Small World, and one of the most iconic things that you would have designed that everybody references today, of course, is the clock. And if I've read correctly, I know that you were originally designing a little tea room on Main Street that you were going to put a bunch of clocks in there as well. So I'm just wondering, is there a clock fascination that you have? And if not, just if you could tell us about kind of the facade design, either one.
Well, I was sort of fascinated with clocks because I was working on a clock shop for Main Street.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to put a high contrast of clocks in this little clock shop. So when people went into it, there'd be all kinds of clocks to look at. It wouldn't be the same clock. So I was having a lot of fun with clocks at that time. And that's when Walt said, because I didn't know what we were supposed to put in the entrance to Small World, because there was a space above the hole that you went in the boat in through. And so Walt asked me, so what are you going to put in that space, in that platform? And I said, I don't know, maybe we'll have an orchestra go out there and play. He said, no, Roland, we're not going to put an orchestra out there to play. And so he looked at me, he says, why don't you put a clock out there? I said, oh, well, that's a good idea. I always told him he had good ideas. And so then I was assigned to do the little clock. All with it. I had a real talented young designer working with me on it. And we actually did a half-inch scale model of a working clock, the actual clock with all the characters, and it actually worked. In fact, it was on a TV show with Walt. Because Walt says, what are you working on, Rolly? And I said, I'm working on a clock. And so anyway, and the little clock just turned out beautiful. And the interesting thing about this, now this is another kind of a cute story. Dick Irvine, that was in charge of WIT at that time, was the one that I answered to. Anyway, he didn't like my clock at all. He thought the clock should look more like a European clock. Instead, I made it look like a Mary Blair clock. So what happened was, we got the model built and finished to show Walt with the music. We had the sound and everything. So Walt says, okay, let's run it. And so then Dick Irvine came along with him. And so we ran the clock. I've got a photograph of Walt and I looking at the clock. And Walt's laughing and I'm laughing. We're having a good old time with it. Anyway, when it was finished, Dick Irvine told Walt, he said, I don't think it's the right clock. He said, the right design. He said it should be more European. He said, this does not have a European look at all. Of course, Walt knew that I was using Mary's patterns and design, and he knew what I was doing. So after he told Walt, he said, no, I don't think that's what I said. I think we'll have Mark Davis redesign it. And Walt looked him straight in the eye and says, I like it exactly the way it is. And that was that. That took care of that.
Oh my God! And clearly, it stood the test of time in terms of people loving the design. So that was definitely the right call. I guess jumping to another big project you were involved in. Everyone, I feel like, has heard these fun stories about the Tiki Room and how all of those things were created. I just want to, I guess, fact check something quickly. Did you sculpt one of them with a plastic utensil, like one of the tiki gods outside of the Tiki Room?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Well, I was asked to sculpt the tikis with soft clay, and I'd never sculpted before in my life. I didn't know what I was doing, but I designed them, and I knew how to do what they would look like three-dimensional. And so what happened was, once I put the clay onto the armature of it, then I started using a little it was a plastic fork from the restaurant. So I had a plastic fork from lunch, and I sculpted all my tikis with that plastic fork. Because I was not a sculptor, so I didn't know how to use sculptor's tools.
Oh, I wish you still had that plastic fork today. I mean, I feel like it's probably was in a trash can afterwards, but that's still a...
He has saved almost everything else, but you didn't save that plastic fork, did you?
Oh, God, no. I didn't think anything about it. But you know, back then working with Walt in the early days of what we were doing for Disneyland and everything, we just did whatever we had to do and with no background in it at all. And so you just did whatever you were told to do, and you used whatever tool you had that was handy. So anyway, it was fun. We had a great time with the old man on this.
And
He was like a little kid himself, so we got along beautifully.
sounds great. For the Tiki gods, I know that they were all based on like real Tiki gods that like from history and from tales. Was that something that was important to you when you were creating something? If it had like to give something a backstory in any attractions you were creating? I love backstories, and I love when things are placed in like some sort of a reality. So knowing about that made me excited. I was just curious if that was something that was important to you.
Oh, God, yes. Oh, yeah, homework. The bottom line is homework. When I first started working for WED and stuff, and I get an assignment, and I go to John Hench. John Hench was teaching me. He was my mentor. And so I said, John, what do I do? And he says, you do your homework. You read up on everything about the subject that you're going to get involved with. So that's what I did. I got a book out on what the tikis look like. I read stories about the tikis and what they did. So I did my homework. And that was one of the things I ever learned from John, was doing your homework. And that was true about every project I ever worked on. I would do my homework first and really do it.
Even your paintings that you did. Even your paintings that you did.
Oh yeah.
You researched.
Yeah, I did a lot of paintings. I did a lot of paintings on Josephine Baker, and so I got books out about who she was, photos of her and everything. And I still have some paintings that I did of Josephine Baker.
That's great to know. As someone who really like appreciates doing research and stuff, I'm glad that that's kind of like what was taught to all of you. And then another thing I read about that I wanted to ask about, just because I feel like I need some context about this. I read that you drove a Porsche through Fantasyland, and I'm just curious about that little story.
She's curious about this story. You drove your Porsche through Fantasyland.
Well, luckily, I was supervising art director for Disneyland for a while. And back in those days, they had the cars, the trucks and everything when we were working on Disneyland. And so trucks and cars were inside the park when the public wasn't there. And I had a little red Porsche, and this friend of mine had a little brown Porsche. And one day I looked down in front of the castle, and there was my buddy with his Porsche parked in front of the castle. I said, oh my God, I got to get my Porsche in there. But I never got my Porsche. I drove around in the park in it, but I never had my picture taken with it in Disneyland. But I do have pictures of me taking it in a little park close to Disneyland.
Were you guys able to do fun stuff like that? I guess like in the parks, being like just being there all the time and like just kind of play around. Was that something that you felt like you were able to do and experience?
Oh yeah. Another good story. On the side, I designed some toys, some little push-down characters, little figures, and they were little push-down. I did a little devil, and when you pushed him down, a little sign came out of his head and said, "Go to hell." So that I was designing these toys for a Japanese company, and so I had a lot of fun with the toys. Well, one day I got I guess it was almost 20 toys, and I put them in a box, and I took them out, and I put them in front of in front of a castle. So I have photographs of all my toys in front of the castle at Disneyland.
Didn't you lay on the ground to take that photo?
Yes, I did. I had to lay on the ground to get the right angle on it and everything.
It's a great photo.
Yeah, it's a great photo. I still have one somewhere. Yeah, they were great. And I also had all the little signs pushed down so you could read what the little characters were saying when you took a look at them there. So that was fun.
That's a great story. The next kind of project I wanted to just quickly ask you about, of course, we all know you worked on the Haunted Mansion, Museum of the Weird, kind of everything with Yale Gracie, from helping out with Pepper's Ghost to the wallpaper, sorry. But I wanted to kind of just dive into what the Haunted Mansion was going to be, when it was going to be like a walk-through scary attraction, those like kind of first ideas and discussions of that. Is there anything that comes to mind that would have made it really scary, or any scary ideas you guys originally had for the Haunted Mansion when it was going to be like its first inception of it?
In other words, we came up with a lot of other things to put in there. Actually, when it became a walkthrough, it could have become cumbersome. And when they made a ride out of it, it made it much easier for us to do it. So I'm much happier that it ended up as a ride. Although I think if Walt had lived, it would have been a walkthrough. Because, when you really have to realize you're doing a project, you have to look at every aspect of it. And the idea that would get out of the elevator and come out, and they were turned loose. And it was very difficult for operations to control. There were 100 people on the elevator. And so 100 people released into a black area was a little awkward. So I can understand that's why they had a concern. And so when they decided to do the ride, I went with the idea of the ride. But if Walt had lived, he still might have wanted making a walkthrough. And we'll never know.
For sure.
What about the origin of the... I'm asking him a question.
Yeah, go for it. Of course.
So, the illusion of the fisherman and the wife in wasn't that?
No, okay.
That was meant to be in the walkthrough.
It had to be part of a walkthrough.
Oh, yeah.
We designed one little room to where the sea captain was. You were up in the elevation. You're looking down into a room, and the sea captain's down there, and he slowly appears, and there's water running all over him and everything, and then behind him, a wall lights up, and he murdered his wife. So his wife has been bricked up in this area behind him.
Like a fireplace.
Yeah, like the fireplace. And so supposedly, while he's in there, he's come home. He's just come back from being in the ocean and drowned and all that. So he's dripping wet, standing in the middle of the room, and then all of a sudden, her ghost, because he killed her and bricked her up in the wall. So all of a sudden, her ghost slowly appears. And all of a sudden, he sees the ghost sees her, and then she charges him. Actually, as you see through her, she charges him and gets right to him, and then they both disappear. So that's the illusion. It's like all of a sudden, she came to life. So that was a great illusion, but it was going to be run for 3 minutes. Well, when you're in a ride, nothing runs for 3 minutes for you to take a look at. You're going every 2 feet a second, so it wouldn't work. So that's how that happened.
Probably would have left some children screaming as well. That could have been funny to watch, but I guess if you're not detained to the Omnimover, it could get a little bit messy. So it makes me understand why they went with the like a ride vehicle for that attraction.
Show starts in 8 minutes.
Okay, everyone, now is your chance to go check your phone, grab a snack, head to the bathroom. It's like a little intermission. We don't have too much of the interview left, but Rolly did need to take a little bit of a break. I had him talking for a while there, so we're going to continue the interview tomorrow. In your case, that will be in the next 5 seconds. So let's get to that.
And now, on with the show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Get in there.
I know, as best as we
There
can.
it is, right?
But yesterday we left off talking about the Haunted Mansion, and what I wanted to talk about next was the Museum of the Weird. And I was just wondering if there was anything from that museum like that stood out to you that you wish came to fruition.
Of the Museum of the Weird?
Yeah, the Museum of the Weird.
So she's asking about the Museum of the Weird.
Yeah.
Is there anything about the work that you did on that you wish would have come?
Well, it'd be nice if they built it. You know, there was a great story behind all of this. Walt always wanted the mansion to be spooky.
Mm-hmm.
He once said everybody likes to be scared. And the biggest problem was the upper management that worked for him didn't want a scary ride. They wanted a funny ride. And so there was a little battle going on there all the time. And so when I came up with the Museum of the Weird, it was just a bunch of weird drawings that I did. I had nothing in mind. I just did weird stuff that I thought would be kind of neat to have in the mansion. And what happened was I was kind of hidden behind the curtains when we gave the last presentation to Walt, but my drawings were still kind of tucked away there. And evidently Walt saw my drawings. So he said, what's the stuff that Rolly's done? And they said, we don't know. You're going to have to ask him. So he said, okay, Rolly, what is it? I said, I really don't know. I said, I do feel that the mansion should have some scary stuff in it. And I said, that's what these little drawings are for. So he said, oh, okay. So he got up and he left. He says, I'm going home. I'll be back tomorrow. Well, when he came back the next day, he was at my desk at 8 o'clock in the morning waiting for me. I thought, oh, my God. And so the first thing he said was, you son of a bitch. I said, oh, my God, what? He said, I didn't get an ounce of sleep last night after looking at all those weird drawings. And he says, and finally dawned on me what we should do. And I said, what's that? He said, we'll have a Museum of the Weird. And we will collect all the weird things all over the world and put them in this museum. So then he called all the guys back that had left the room. And, of course, when they left the room after he did, they said, we told you you wouldn't like him. Well, against their opinion, he did. He loved them. He thought they were great. So anyway, he brought them in, and he gave a full presentation of what the Museum of the Weird would be like. And then they all said, oh, that's great, Walt. That's really good. So all of a sudden, we were back on time again with doing the Museum of the Weird. And then Walt got sick and passed away, and then it just kind of disappeared into the cobwebs. So it's always been kind of an underground project that no one has really finalized or brought to the surface. So anyway, that's where we stand with the Museum of the Weird.
And for the Museum of the Weird, would it have just been, like you said, all of these, like basically just like a museum, or was there going to be some sort of a storyline connecting you as you were walking through this Museum of the Weird?
No, it basically was going to be part of the museum. It was going to be an exit area that when you left the mansion, you'd go through a big room that was the exit room. So they were going to be in the exit room.
And something I was just curious about knowing, do you know what your backstory is in the Haunted Mansion? Because you actually have a character in there, and I was just curious to know if you knew what it was.
Do you know what it is?
No, I know nothing about that.
I could quickly tell you if you want. I just thought it was funny. So, Rolly, you are one of the bus that sing the Grim Grinning Ghost song, and the way that you died in the mansion was that you were in a glee club with Yale Gracie, who I guess in this case would be Master Gracie, and your microphones got electrocuted, and then that's how you ended up in the Haunted Mansion.
So the story is how you ended up in the Haunted Mansion?
Yeah.
You were in a glee club with Yale Gracie?
Oh, wow.
And your microphones were electrocuted?
Oh, God.
Where are these characters visible? I mean, you see them, or it's just a story that you read, or?
Well, apparently he's one of the busts, like, that sing the Grim Grinning Ghost song. So that would be visible. But, like, in terms of the character backstory, I think there's a photo in the line of the Haunted Mansion that, like, could slightly reference it, but you have to be kind of like nerdy like I am to really go digging to find out what all of those characters' backstories are. I love reading those things, and when I saw that, I had a chuckle, so I thought I'd tell you guys. So I guess now I just have a couple fun questions and then my final one. And Marie, feel free to, you can answer these as well, because I mean, they're just quite general, just for fun. But I was wondering if either of you had a favorite snack at Disney that you can recommend to anyone listening right now.
A favorite what? I'm sorry?
A favorite snack at Disney.
A favorite snack at Disney?
Snack?
Yeah, for me it's always about the ice cream.
Is it my favorite snack?
Is there a favorite snack at Disneyland that...
Oh, yeah, well, going ice cream was my favorite snack. On Main Street, I go over to Sunkist, and they had the greatest snacks going, and they were all ice cream snacks, and they were just great. On Main Street, I couldn't wait to get there.
Me too, and I didn't even know him at the time.
Just for fun, how did you two meet? I know it was a little bit later.
Yeah.
I like hearing that story.
We met actually. I worked at the studio while Rolly was there, and through a mutual friend we met. Hello, how are you? Nice to meet you. And then he went off and lived a life, and I lived a life, and our friend lived a life. And then 30 years later, our friend passed, and Rolly was having an art show in the town right near where I was living. And I wanted him to know about our friends, so I went to the show and introduced myself after 30 years.
Wow.
And the rest is history.
That's so nice.
That's a very brief version.
Yeah, but it's nice to hear. And then another fun question is, what are either of your favorite rides at Disneyland?
Favorite rides?
Mine was the Pirates.
Pirates.
I always felt that the Pirate was the best ride because it's what Walt said. I was on the Christmas. I was on the
riverboat.
The riverboat with Walt. And Walt says, you know, Rolly, he says, when you're designing a ride, the best thing you can do is at least have 20 minutes or a half hour to design the ride so the people really get involved with what you're doing. And because everything else prior to that, the first dark rides were only 90 seconds long, and Walt wanted them to be much longer, because he wanted the people to really absorb what you're trying to tell. So that's what we were doing, doing the best we could, and that's why the Pirates is a great example of that, because you're in the pirate ride for about 20 or 25 minutes, so you really get engulfed in it, and you get really turned on by the whole thing. So I think that was the one thing that Walt really wanted us to do. And of course it worked out a little bit, but not very much. But the Pirates was the last ride that we did where it was 20 minutes.
Marie, what was your favorite ride?
Actually, I know this sounds ridiculous, but it was a pirate ride as well.
Oh.
And of course, Small World. All of the things that when I didn't really know who Rolly was. I started at the studio early in 1965, and I think I was introduced to him in 1970. But everything that I loved in the park, he had a hand in. It's kind of weird, but...
I was going to say romantic, but I mean, either way.
Yeah, no, it is. It's one of many of those kinds of things. Rolly designed a little gift shop with plush toys. I didn't know it at the time. Of course, I didn't know who he was. It was my favorite place to go. It was Mickey's Mart, what was it called?
Mart.
Yeah. And so years later, obviously, when we met, and I talked about that, and then that's when I found out that he had designed that, and I just loved it.
I have photos of all of that.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you know what we're talking about?
I haven't heard about this before, so for me this is like I'm discovering something new.
Maybe you can Google it.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you think, but Mickey's Mart, and it was a big open shop.
Yeah.
And you walked in, and it was your first impression was that it was all black and white with these long hanging lamps. I don't know. It was very very different for the time, for the park, actually. But anyway, that was my favorite thing.
That's amazing. And now we are at the final question. So this series that I'm doing, it's called How to Be an Imagineer. So that's kind of my last question for Rolly. For anyone who is aspiring to be an Imagineer, whether it be at Disney or I know Rolly's worked at various theme parks, just I guess creating and designing attractions, what would be your advice for any of the future upcoming generation of Imagineers and theme park designers?
What I'd like to say is imagination. I think the bottom line is imagination. You're going to be an engineer, you better have a damn good imagination, because that's how I grew up. At least I had an imagination before I got started with all this. And that was because I used to listen to all the radio shows. Homework. Always do your homework. When you're doing an assignment, a project, the first thing you do is study it inside out and backwards. And I've done that for myself as well as for Disney.
And the other two things? Follow your crazy ideas.
Oh, yeah, follow your crazy ideas. Yeah, that's it. And what's the other one? You remember better than I do.
Follow your crazy ideas and...
Well, that already sounds like enough inspiration to me to pass along to anyone who is interested in pursuing a career like that. But in the end, that is all the questions. I could ask you questions all day, but I don't want to keep people listening all day. So that is about it for now. But I just want to thank both of you for just giving me the opportunity to chat with you. It's been truly an honor, and I'm very glad that I was able to do this.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Well, I will leave you both to it. I hope that we can all get outside sooner rather than later, and until then, keep sane. Yeah.
Thank you, Alyssa. And I want to tell you that Rolly was, after he talked to you yesterday, he was really happy with your questions.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah.
I know he gets asked to be interviewed all the time, so yeah.
And he's happy to do it all the time, but there's some that are special, and this was one of them.
Oh, thank you so much.
We jot some things down and call you about them, just some little ideas, so it's better if we take it out of our heads.
For sure. Well, again, thank you both, and I hope you have a lovely day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You too. Huh?
Okay, bye. I don't know why I feel so... Oh my god, I'm gonna cry. Whew, I'm like sweating, I feel emotional. I don't know why. Anyways, I'm gonna try to outro this without bawling my eyes out. I don't know why I feel so emotional. I think it's just getting this was my first opportunity to talk to an Imagineer, not just an Imagineer, but someone who dealt with Walt, dealt with so many attractions that are so like near and dear to my heart, and reasons that I love Disney and love all of the history and research that I do, and to have been able to talk to someone who appreciates research even more than I appreciate it, and like having a fully fleshed backstory before you go into I guess it just seems very special that the way that a lot of the original Imagineers were like raised and kind of taught and molded to work and create at the company was to do all of this research and to care about your projects and to just have an idea and run with it, and then if it happens or doesn't happen, that's not basically the point. It's just coming up with that idea and then having the courage to do it is what is important. And I think, of course, Rolly just kind of outlined that to us on his final question on like what advice he has for future generations of Imagineers. But if you've stuck through the whole interview, thank you so much. I know the audio is going to sound a little bit funky. That was because for this recording we had to do it as you could have seen through the phone. The rest of these recordings will likely be video calls, so the audio should be better because I'm not taking it from one medium to the next like using a recorder like this one. But I figured that for this one, it really didn't matter how we heard Rolly speak, if it was a video or if it was over the phone. Just the fact that he was willing to tell his stories yet again, that was enough for me to be happy with. So that was episode 1 of How to Become an Imagineer, and I could not have asked for a better guest on that episode. But if you enjoyed this video, of course, make sure you give it a nice big thumbs up, comment down below on your thoughts, what you think about Rolly, how amazing he is, and any ideas that you have for future episodes. And of course, you need to make sure that you're subscribed to the channel if you want to hear those future episodes. So subscribe today, and until next week, folks, I will see you all real soon. Bye, everyone.